Good evening and welcome to another in words.
Evening and welcome to it. Yeah, you know, which is also. Have I actually uploaded the new theme?
You've got an ASMR request in the chat, Herbert.
Floppy balls engraving make the ghosts go boogaloo. Okay. Oh, hang on. Floppy ghosts engraving make the ghosts go boogaloo. Oh, there. How was that for you? I need a ciggy now.
Yeah. Right, so tonight we're talking about DUNC, aren't we, Hobbit?
Oh, yeah. Are we ever? And we're definitely not going to be talking about shrooms and psychedelics and what the possible inspiration Frank Herbert could have had for the spice.
Yep.
Seeing paths into the future and all that stuff. Yes. Now, if you go on terrorism Instagram, you can see my review of the DUNC film, 2021.
Off license. For anybody that doesn't get why we've called it DUNC, I've called it DUNC because of the poster art. The poster art on the 2021 film.
Yeah. And I'm calling it that so that when we're talking about Dune, we won't get confused between Dune, the film by David Lynch in 1984, the Dune miniseries in 2000, and DUNC 2021 with the horrible, evil, ugly goblin bitch, which is definitely not Channy. But my review of that is available. It's there in the description on the thing. It says we're live Thursday nights from 1900 hours GMT.
Yeah.
WordPress hemmingfordgrey.home.blog. Find us on terrorist.
In years.
Yeah, find us on terroristismgram.
Terroristism.
Terrorism Instagram.
Yeah.
t.me/Fortean words, where you can see my 1 hour review of the DUNC film and comparing it to the Dune miniseries and a little bit of the original Dune from 1984.
I actually watched. I think I watched about half of that today.
What,
Dune.
DUNC?
No, the original Dune,
Oh.
the proper Dune.
Yeah, proper Dune.
Have you watched the fan edit?
The thing about DUNC is you can't say it's woke. I don't think it's woke. I don't think you could call it woke, could you? There's only a couple of. I mean, like, there's quite a lot of like stunt cut. Do you think stunt casting is different to woke?
Gender and race swapping Dr. Liet Kynes with Dr. Reverend Shaniqua Kynes is a sin. It's criminal.
Yeah. And I think, like, all of the great houses are of one particular race. There's very little diversity in the actual book.
The Harkonnens, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, they're not, are they? Because they've got Batista or whatever the hell he is. He's like a bit of a, Mine's 57.
It's got brown people in it.
Yeah.
What has more sand, Arrakis or Vinny's vagina? Yeah. That is the question.
That is an episode in itself.
That is the question which we'll be delving into tonight as we talk about DUNC. So you may be going like, but I want to know about paranormal stuff and ghosts and things. All right. So let me tell you the story of Dune. The story of Dune is very alien to us. It's not science fiction in the way we see it. And it's timeless because...
See, what you should have done, Hobbit, is you should have prepared this and you should have got the Beverly Hillbillies theme tune. You should have worked out a theme song, a song about Dune.
I'm not familiar with that theme song. I've never watched that show.
I can't remember the words myself because I haven't seen it in years, but there was once a farmer, his name was Jed, could barely keep his family fed. It's something like that. And then he finds
oil in his shed.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
No, they're the Beverly Hillbillies.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So the story of Dune is timeless and it's very alien.
The story of Dune is timeless. The story of DUNC 2021 is very much It's very much
of its
dateable.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah. The DUNC 2021 is of its time, but Dune is timeless. And the reason for that is because it's... Now, in the original books, it got retconned to say after Guild, but it's originally set in the year 10,191 Anno Domini, Year of Our Lord, which to all the Cope, Sieve and Dilators would be 10,191 Common Era. You know, the era based on that common event.
Yeah,
the event which
event.
happened.
The common event that everyone agrees on.
Yeah, the birth of Jesus Christ.
The birth of G-D's son.
Yeah, that's oh God.
Jason, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah. And in this, you've got now. I'm surprised really that it's come out in this year, because what it's talking about is the fact that the Bene Gesserit, which are totally not the Jesuits, have had this breeding program for millennia. So a eugenics breeding program to produce their messiah, which they call the Kwisatz Haderach. And as Hemmy's found out, there's a Jewish thing.
Connections.
There's a Hebrew thing which sounds a lot like Kwisatz Haderach, which means teleportation or someone that can teleport.
Kwisatz just makes me think of like Cuisinart. You know, the thing you have in your kitchen. The Cuisinart Haderach.
I've read National Lampoon's Dune, and in that they do mention the Cuisinart Haderach. Or something like that. They
went for that one, did they?
Yeah, and then there's House Hard Charging, and there's the Freedmen Men, and Dune is the only place where you can find Dune, the desert planet. The only place where you find what is it? Pretzels, and it's got lakes of beer, or something like that. No.
So I think our flies. Epstein had a breeding program. Perhaps was Epstein kicking off Dune then? Was he?
Oh, well, it wasn't Weinstein who had a breeding program. No.
Eggplant penis shaped master race.
I don't think they were part of the eugenic breeding program.
Oh, okay, right, yeah, that's different.
So Dune is very much pro eugenics, and it's also very Ted Kaczynski in that. There was a war, a holy war, a Butlerian jihad, if you will, where humanity had a war against the thinking machines, which had enslaved them. And I think we're just about starting to see signs of that already in this year. So,
just to answer by Ray, Epstein had a weird-shaped penis as well. I didn't know Epstein had a weird Epstein as Corbyn.
Well, I'm glad that eugenics program's going somewhere, right? You know?
Yeah. Eggplant master race.
Eggplant master. What? Yeah. Does the Kwisatz Haderach have a certain shaped penis, Robert?
Yeah.
Do you know what shape his penis is? Is it coming true? Is the prophecy going to be fulfilled? How many more generations do they need to before they get it right?
I bet.
Yes.
Was the egg-shaped penis part of the breeding program? Was it?
Well, you can say that's not a breeding program done by the Bene Gesserit, is it? It's a breeding program done by weird, incestuous, inbred fucks who, some might say are part Neanderthal, and others might say are part Goblin. I don't really know. I haven't looked into it that much. Well, I have looked.
From what we can demonstrate later, they do have dominion over beasts that you can't name, which there's only one kind of like supernatural beast that you can't name.
Oh yeah, that's something I do bring up in the film, but I just said there's a scene in Dunk where this has got nothing to do with Dune. There's like this weird creature which looks like an extra from the Aliens film, and it's just, why is that there? That's not a thing. And it's like it's Peter de Vries' pet in the thing, and I was like, you what? No, it's not. But anyway, Dune, the pro-eugenics film, which shows that blood and soil is important. And it's throughout the entire thing of blood and sword is very, very important, and also not to trust technology because it enslaves us. Now, I actually had a quote which I read. It was from Frank Herbert himself. So I'll just read it here because I think this is very important, right? And we will turn to the paranormal because I'm going to be talking in the later a bit about my own experiences with not the spice melange, but certain other substances,
Spices.
shall we say? Yes.
The mushroom melange.
Yes. He believed
Can you get that at Salt Bays? Do you think?
He believed the purple spores is what gave it the magic, and that was the basis for melange in his fictional book.
Well, he actually also saw the Bene Gesserit religion. He said, like, what if you had all the religions, but you like spin it out to like the year, it was the year 10,000, and he said that they'd all kind of like merge into one religion. So I think that's what the Bene Gesserit is. I think it's like the one religion
New
to
Age,
rule them all.
the New Age movement, like
except the thing is, already it's not, because the fact is, the Bene Gesserit, they have this thing called the Missionaria Protectiva, or Protectiva, depending tomato, where they create religions in various planets, which helps them because then they can manipulate the people by alluding to prophecy. But here's the quote from Frank Herbert. Technology tends towards avoidance of risks by investors. I mean, that's why I say all these films and games and stuff, they're technology, they're not art anymore. Uncertainty is ruled out if possible. People generally prefer the predictable. Few recognise how destructive this can be, how it imposes severe limits on variability, and thus makes whole populations fatally vulnerable to the shocking ways our universe can throw the dice. And it's true that sort of complacency results in people getting blindsided.
Oh God, it explains Call of Duty every year.
Yeah, or FIFA.
Oh, FIFA, yeah, it's just the same shit.
I saw a video like showing how they made FIFA or NBA 2021. It's just like source code for NBA 2020. Copy, paste, rename to 2021. There, done.
What? The graphics are slightly better each year.
Are they?
Are they?
I don't know. I think the last FIFA I played was like 98. I think.
I mean, it's kind of like saying like, oh, they released a new iPhone and it's better, and it's like, is it? I mean, all they've done is they've just given you a software update which made your old iPhone crap. So you just go, oh, my phone's not as good as it used to be. I need to get the new one. It's like
correction. The only copy of FIFA I own is 96.
So
no, I definitely remember
Eric Cantona back in playing 1996. Cantona.
He was in 98 as well. He was in the World Cup edition, wasn't he?
So Eric Cantona would have agreed with this statement about technology making things a bit too complacent, and it does destroy the human spirit. And I think Frank Herbert was very.
It does. I think it's Jason McAteer on the front of FIFA 96.
So it was quite prophetic to have this thing. Now, Frank was raised by his mum and his aunt. Dad didn't really get much of a look-see in his world, and both his mum and his aunt were Jesuit. They were Jesuit trained.
Were either of them called Benny?
Don't know what his aunt and mother.
Now we know
called.
why the Bene Gesserit or female.
Benita
it's his cry for help. He was just like saying, "Mummy and Auntie beat me, and send help." You know.
Oh, fuck's sake!
I reckon either Mummy or Auntie are Benita. That's what I reckon.
Benita.
Yeah, Bonnie Jesuits.
My monitor's giving up the ghost, so I can't see the notes what I've done written.
Okay.
So that's okay. I can just.
Hobbit's prep.
Live on air. You caught it.
I mean, I set it to 50 hertz for fuck's sake. It was complaining when I put it up to 120 hertz. So I was like, all right, I'll run you in cucked mode, and it was reliable for about a year, or two. And now it's just like, no, I don't know. I'll put it up to 60 hertz and see if that makes a difference. Oh yeah, so there we go. I got my thing. So the new film DUNC, it really just. Okay, so it's only got like the
bland, isn't it? But you watch the '84 and it's like it's bombastic. They've got cracking uniforms, coiffured hair, haven't they? They really look like royalty, don't they? Whereas in this one, they just look like fucking peasants that get dragged from one end of the galaxy to the other, don't they?
Oh, Interdimensional Lizard says microphones, chairs, and new monitors for racists. Yes, very much. So I have this. Oh my god! Actually, this. Oh, he's done a huge bit. Cool.
What?
Oh, okay, yeah. So I'm going to post the tweet because he actually said some very good stuff in here, and it gives me time to gather my thoughts. So I'll post that in general.
Okay, and put it on the screen, do you?
Yeah, because I'm going to read out these tweets. And he says, watching June piecemeal. I also plan to see it in the theatre to get the... he's talking about DUNC.
Yeah, he's talking about DUNC, yeah.
Early thoughts, basically solid, but some of the aesthetics of, spelled, yeah. The Harkonnen shouldn't be rendered as physically ugly. The Baron is an exception. They're actually an attractive race, Spartan ways. Yeah, he's got a point there, actually. Like, in June, you've got Sting playing Vader Alpha, and then you've got the Baron, who's hideously disfigured from all the AIDS that he's got from, like, gay rape. And, but prior to the AIDS making him fat and crippled, he looks much like Sting does as Vader Alpha. So, here we go. Gidi Prime is a toxic planet and they have health problems, but they're not this ugly tribe of baldies. The Baron is too low-key. The DUNC 2021 Baron is some cross between Brezhnev and Paul Castellano. That's not his character. He's cunning, but he's high-strung. He's a voracious pervert, or faggot, who preys aggressively on young men. Young men, it means prepubescent boys. He cannot control his passions, so he obese. He is not this wise don of the Harkonnen Mafia. Okay, yeah, no, he can't control his passions, yeah, but it's like specifically like the sexually transmitted diseases he got from bumming all the boys is why he's like, stuff like that. Personal shields aren't presented well. Shields are possible by way of the Holtzman effect, as in folding space-time. More on that later. They're not just invisible, shimmery armor. They're essentially warp space-time around the combatant, which is why when lasguns are deployed against them, there's often a catastrophic old nuclear explosion. Yeah, he's right. There's a scene in it where Duncan Idaho, played by that Maori Jason Momoa, is flying a shielded ornithopter, and an attack craft is like firing a laser beam behind it, and I'm just like, do you have a death wish? Do you want to commit suicide? Because that would result in everyone dying. So he goes, addendum. Incidentally, Frank Herbert, just before he died, attended a screening of June. He said the movie had serious problems and got many things very wrong, but he said the aesthetics were uncannily spot on, and not coincidentally subsequent printings. Now, I have actually got some problems with the casting of the original June film. Patrick Stewart is not ugly enough to play Gurney Halleck. I think if I was going to do the casting, and I know he's a bit old, but I would still cast him as it, I would have Mickey Rourke playing Gurney Halleck. Well, right, so here we go. Mickey Rourke, right? His face is all beat up. He actually, looks like he's been beat up because guess what he has? He did professional boxing and he got his face smashed in. So Mickey Rourke not only looks the part, but being that he was a professional boxer, he's got an understanding of combat. So they got some Mexican. He reminds me of Chuco in Breaking Bad, whoever it is. But that was a poor casting choice. But I'm not sure in 1984 who you could have got to play Gurney Halleck, but Patrick Stewart wasn't.
If you could have got him, you probably could have got like a James Coburn or a Lee Maverick. Lee Maverick. Or
Lee Van Cleef, yeah, that would have been good. Yeah, who's that guy in Westworld?
You could always get Eli Wallach. Do you remember The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly? Eli Wallach.
Oh yeah.
Kicking around back then.
Yeah, that's true. I'm also thinking Yul Brynner, but I'm not sure if he was dead by 1984.
Don't know. I know. Was it? Westworld was like 79, weren't it?
Yeah, I think Yul Brynner died shortly afterwards, so maybe he'd have been too old for the part. But I think Gurney Halleck was in his 50s by about the time of the events and the thing. But anyway, let's carry on reading more about what this Thomas 777's got to say. Of the Dune novels feature the 1984 Dune optics. Yeah, that's it. The subsequent printings of Dune, they feature the optics of the original film. The Harkonnens have muscular, robust, red hair. They favour leather greatcoats and uniforms reminiscent of the early SS. Oh. Lynch also did a great thing by including Edric, the Guild steersman, although he never appears until Dune Messiah. Yep, that's a very good point.
So what number book is Dune Messiah, just so we got some idea of how...
That's the second book in the series. And the reason...
They've only moved him forward a bit then.
Well, that's it. I mean, they referred to him as a third stage guild navigator, but that is Edric. And then in later books, it's like, actually, Edric's a class of navigators. So I'm not sure if they clone them or what have you. But
so were they once
they
human,
do carry on.
The navigator, the big guy?
Yeah, they are. They've been mutated by vast quantities of spice to look like what they do. And they did it really well. They almost didn't bother with the new Dune film. It's like the new DUNC had great sets, but everything else, the casting, the music, the acting, was all it's just subpar, really. The 2000 miniseries by the Sci-Fi Channel is probably the best adaptation, and it had beautiful sets, even though it was low budget and camp. It was beautiful, and the acting was better. But then again, that's not saying much.
I mean, that's Zendaya. Is she carved out of wood or something? She's awful, absolutely awful.
Who's that then?
Chani in the new one.
Oh, the Goblina. Oh God, yeah. She fuck her. No, well, actually, no, I wouldn't fuck her with your cock, mate. But so carrying on. So Edric, the Guild steersman. There's a major horror aspect to the Duniverse. It's horrific that any human would allow themselves to be mutated to the point of Edric, yet alone covet the process. Well, there is a lot of drugs involved. Also conveys the real power is not the Landsraad, it's the Spacing Guild.
So what's the Landsraad if people haven't read the books?
So there's it's like the equivalent of the United Nations or League of Nations is, you've got the Landsraad, and there's...
so it's like the Federation from Star Trek then, is it?
Yeah, and like all the major houses, not all of them are in the Landsraad, but... It's like, if you want a say in the imperial politics, you need to be in the Landsraad. And there's also a sister organisation, which is not related, but there's a significant overlap called CHOAM, which is the Merchants Guild, or CHOAM. Now, the Emperor has all the actual power of an aged fool like Biden. The Guild steersmen literally piss on the floor of the phone room, look carefully at the disgusting slime seeping out of its tank. Yeah, it's kind of funny, actually. They're, in the scene afterwards, like, the guild attendants, they've got mops and they're sweeping the floor after his leave.
I remember that.
Yeah.
So what are they then? Are they humans? Are they augmented somehow? Are they on their way? Are they on their way to becoming Edrics? What are they?
They're humans, but they've lived all their life in space, so that's why they got the pale skin and seem a bit sort of washed out of life. They don't set foot on planets unless they really have to.
They don't use their own voice either, do they?
Well, that's the other thing. They've got their own language, and this is one of the things which is very key in Dune, which is very important, is the use of language and also the divergence of religion. Like, as you mentioned, the Bene Gesserit, they've got their religion, which they've been manipulating for millennia. The Fremen are called Zen Sunni Wanderers, which is some point in the history of these slaves, which ended up in Arrakis and became the Fremen, or freed men. They had some sort of enlightenment in the Islamic faith, and that's why you have like Zen Buddhism, you have Zen Sunnism, and then you have the Bene Tilax, which is also an offshoot of Islam, and they have their own Islamic faith, where they believe they talk to God through genetic manipulation, because they say DNA is the language of God.
So, in Herbert's mind, is everyone does it all stem from Islam then? The kind of like religious.
Oh, there's also they call it the Orange Catholic Bible, and Gurney Halleck is very devout Orange Catholic. So it just seems to be, it's like religions which we'd recognise, but after 8,000 years of time have evolved and changed somewhat. So, like, for example, if you went back 4,000 years ago and someone might be worshipping Zeus, but then you mention about God and Jesus, they'd probably understand the concepts and say, well, what you're talking about there is Zeus and Heracles or something.
Wait a minute. Yeah. So basically, it's like people who are like think they're pagans today are completely like following the.
Well,
they're not really the pagans of yesteryear.
So, okay, I think Herodotus said it best, right? When he said that I've gone to the Egyptians, and the Egyptians say that the god that rules them all is Ra, but I am convinced that this is just their name for Zeus. And the Egyptians agree with me that there is one god, but then all these other gods come out of it. So Herodotus was saying that there's one god, which is Zeus. So all these other ones, like Aphrodite and Neptune, or is it Neptune or is it Poseidon, the Greek
Poseidon is his brother.
Poseidon. Yeah. So all these other ones were just aspects of God. Like, we say there is God to create the Father, and then there's...
So they had more than a Trinity, is what he's saying.
Or it's like, we got God and the saints. So maybe, like, Hephaestus would have been the saint of blacksmithing. But point being is that you got Orange Catholics, you've got the Zen Sunni.
Do you remember when Powderkeg used to say that the saints were satanic? Do you remember? Did you ever hear him say that?
Protestants are very strange, aren't they?
No, he's a Baptist. Powderkeg's a Baptist.
That is a Protestant. Southern Baptists. Yeah. They believe that the Catholic faith is heresy, and they're very strange people. Now here we go. So the guild spokesman doesn't salute. He doesn't bow. All he says is the Bene Gesserit witch must leave. It's a great scene, by the way. And I would say play it, but then you'll get a copyright strike, so don't. Yeah. But again, this I'll tell you what. I'll copy the link into the chat, and then rather than taking this to terrorism, you can watch this clip at your leisure. This is the fan edit one, which includes like extra scenes, which wasn't in the main film itself. And let's just close that one.
Hobbit, is it true the Orange Catholics got their name because of their fake tans?
I don't know what
Frank Herbert...
I don't know what Frank Herbert was doing with Orange Catholicism. You'd have to ask him. Mm-hmm. So yeah, the guild representative says the Bene Gesserit witch must leave. Doesn't even bother to address the old emperor in his own language. Everyone that's talking English in the film, they're speaking Galach, which is
because also he says the bit, because I watched it quite recently, like today. So because he says the bit, he says about you'd be nothing without us. We shorten the way and all this kind of stuff, doesn't he?
I would drink creme brulee straight out of her ring hole if she let me. The Orange
Nigella
Catholic
Lawson.
got their names.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. Isn't she married to an MP?
She was married to...
Oh, wait a minute. Is it her father?
No. She was married... Yes, her dad. Nigel Lawson. He called his daughter Nigella.
That's just like the tranny version of Nigel.
Yeah.
It was like Nigel's put on the dress and now goes by the name Nigella.
Guess he was disappointed he didn't have a son. He could call Nigel Jr., right?
Yeah.
Isn't that just like the most English name possible? Nigel. Or is it Gary? Or Steve?
Bartholomew.
Oh, no, that's biblical. No, I think Nigel's more English than Bartholomew. This is it. So yeah, the guild steersman doesn't even deign to use Galar. He just talks into his arcane-looking translation device. My dad says, "Oh, how's this sci-fi?" when he's speaking into what looks like a 1920s microphone. And I said, "Well, that's the anachronism of June." So total disrespect, brilliant nuance, and beautiful set pieces. Truly, they were absolutely beautiful. And this guy here, he actually goes on to talk more about
it's a shame
it.
Lynch didn't do more sci-fi, to be honest, because he was really good at it, wasn't
he? Yeah. I don't like everything he's done. Eraserhead is not my cup of tea, but I think Twin Peaks is beautiful. So he says IOW. No idea what IOW stands for. June 84.
Isle of Wight.
Isle of Wight, June 84 conveys how truly alien the world of June. He uses a lot of all caps in this.
He likes an all cap.
Alien, the world of June, the world of man, 20,000 years in the future is. This is very, very rare in sci-fi. Imagine the world of 18,000 before Christ. It's almost inconceivable, even as a thought experiment. I'll say too. Jose Vera was a dope actor, and he exuded that swagger, which is not at all contrived, that hybrid Latin people have. I'm fascinated by this. First, my terrible weakness for lovely ladies. The Empress Dame Carino.
Ah, right. Yeah, is his son the guy from RoboCop, Miguel Ferrer? Because I think he's from an acting family. I think it could be, yeah.
Ah.
You know Bob Morton? You know Bob Morton from RoboCop?
The original RoboCop.
Oh, the villain.
No,
that's
Bodiger. RoboCop. The one that creates RoboCop. Bob Morton.
Yeah.
I didn't know. But he goes, and he says about how he likes the Latin ladies. Now, somewhere here he's saying, so someone here is saying that Villeneuve mimics David Lean's Lawrence of Arabia in the most boring and mediocre way. And I think it's very important. Very important.
Villeneuve ripped off the most iconic Lynch scenes. You said Lean. You're talking about Lawrence of Arabia.
Right. Now, I'm reading another thing underneath it from someone called Nasbolion.
Yeah, that's what I'm reading. He says Lynch, you said Lean. I'm just correcting you, Hobbit, that's all.
Villeneuve mimics David Lean's Lawrence of Arabia in the most... Because that's... Hang on.
It says Lynch.
It says Lynch, not Lean. Who is Lean?
Villeneuve ripped off the most iconic Lynch scenes, but in a boring way.
I will literally copy and paste you what I'm reading because he's got it there on the screen.
And we're reading it, Hobbit.
It's on the screen, right?
You're willfully misreading it, Hobbit.
Wait. Right. Okay, so we're looking at the same thing because it's got those screenshots from the 2000 series.
It says.
So you just.
Oh, sorry. I do apologise. I've just seen it. I was reading the quote tweet.
Are you gaslighting me?
I do apologise.
There we go. The quote tweet says Villeneuve mimics David Lean's Lawrence of Arabia in the most boring and mediocre way. Yeah. By the way, if I was to say what influenced Dune, you got distrust of technology, you've got ecological fiction, and in fact, some say Dune is the first sci-fi series talking about ecology.
Is that Emma Stone in the original, in the sci-fi one?
I can't remember. I didn't really bother looking at the credits, but
what year is it? I'll have a look while you're talking.
2000. It was beautiful. The guy they got to play Baron Vladimir Harkonnen, he was certainly fat enough, but he was a bit too jolly. And I thought
that guy that played Harkonnen in the Lynch one was quite good. Because I mean, you've seen him in because he's like generally a comic character, isn't he? Because he is in.
Patrick Stewart.
No,
the guy who plays Harkonnen, the fat guy with the boils on his face. He was the tech guy in Tango and Cash.
Yeah, that's weird because he's a small, bespectacled man in that one.
Yeah, and he's like a comedy. He's like a kindly comedy character, isn't he?
So Villeneuve mimics David Lean's Lawrence of Arabia in the most boring and mediocre way. I've seen more interesting camera moves, actors, dramaturgy, and cool design in the Dune miniseries, despite the ridiculous low budget and the PS1 era special effects.
What he could have actually been trying to do was like, you know, when they try and mimic 70s films but really badly, you know, like the long lingering shots and things like that.
All I can think with Villeneuve's Dune and the lack of colour saturation in it, because I also sort of think to myself, is he like autistic and like too many colours gives him a headache or something? So he's very, very careful to make it all like subdued colours.
So which actress did you want?
Oh, I didn't. You were interested in the one that's Princess Irulan, in the blue dress with the butterflies and stuff. No, that's not who I thought it was. Then that's somebody else. No. So the thing with Villeneuve's DUNC is, I almost think like, I haven't seen many of the Marvel Cinematic Universe films, but from the trailers I've seen of them, they're all very colourful, almost cartoonish graphics. And I got a feeling that Villeneuve, because he's trying to go for, I'm a serious director and I make serious highbrow films. Yeah. Because I make serious, boring films, I need to have serious, boring photography, and the director of photography must not make it look like an MCU franchise film. We must not enjoy this
at all.
No.
But this is the thing, right? So if you go and watch the 2000 mini-series of Dune, I include a couple of clips of it in my review, which you can see on Fortean Words on Terroristgram. You can see just like... it had colour and it had soul, and despite the low budget, they really put a lot of effort into it. The heart and soul went into it. Oh, and all the actors are white, including the Fremen, which is the way it should be, because the Fremen are white.
There's some decent actors in that. P.H. Moriarty, he's been in a lot of like British gangster films. He has.
Yeah, there was some.
The fat guys. Oh, the Harkonnen in it. Yes, I know what you mean. Yeah, he does play kind of like a kindly character normally, doesn't he? Or eccentric.
Is he also in Demolition Man, or is that a different fatso?
That's a different fatso.
Yeah, okay. Can I ask a question then to do with the races then? In the world of Dune, are there black people and are there other races still? Or is it all just white people?
They're all whites with slight variations, like... Frank Herbert said the name Harkonnen is Finnish, and that's what he imagined.
Oh God!
The Atreides are Greek, and the Fremen. It's never really said what. I mean, the Fremen do have like they have Arabic names, but I like to think of it as like they're LARPing as Arabs. The Arabs got wiped out; they never made it into space.
Okay.
You've got humans that have taken on Arabic names, like you have Stilgar, the Naib of Siege Tabar, which...
Now that is a based universe. It's just like... it is literally the meme of, oh, let's just go to space and leave everyone else here, right? It's white men exodus.
You have to bear in mind the sort of the era when Frank Herbert was doing this, like, Islam was seen as a romantic and exotic thing. So, like, like Brutus said, his dad and his uncle used to go to Afghanistan to smoke hashish. Because back then Afghanistan was welcoming to Westerners. It's
kind of weird because that June 2000 is almost a British production. Because when you look at all the actors, there's the odd Yank in there, but most of them, if you look at the stuff they've done,
there's a lot of Italians in it though.
Yeah.
There's like definite Germans and Italians speaking English in it, and I thought that was actually very good because the Emperor in it, he's Italian, and you can tell he's trying his best speaking English. But I thought it actually did a damn good job.
Right, you know the guy who plays Paul.
Yeah,
he's been in Casualty, The Bill, A Silent Witness, and stuff like that.
Oh my god! Oh, I just like the idea of like Phil Mitchell. Phil Mitchell, the actor who plays him, he'd have made a good Gurney Halleck. No, I think he'd have made a good Gurney Halleck. You know, you put an inkvine scar in his face. But that's the thing.
You don't need to with P.H. Moriarty because he comes with his own scars, doesn't he? Because I think he's actually got a glass eye, that dude.
Has he?
Yeah. He was in the. He's been in Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels. He was also in Long Good Friday.
Yeah, because there was a chubby-faced guy, which I thought, no, he's probably a bit too chubby to play Gurney Halleck, but he actually did a good job, and he was playing Balisette, which looks like a Ludes, and he did a good job in that. Yeah. But yeah, no, the mini-series, it's the closest to the books. It doesn't deviate from the story in any glaring way where I thought, oh no, that's wrong. Whereas DUNC does. The worst crime.
DUNC's major problem is that it's a boring sci-fi. I mean, it kind of reminds me. It's like the sci-fi version of Clash of the Titans. Because the remake.
The remake,
how do you make Clash of the Titans boring?
Yeah, well, you actually make the Kraken a squid, right?
Yeah.
That's what
why? It's not.
I mean, June came out in October the 7th.
Suggesting Mac Lucas as Baron Harkonnen.
Oh, you know that's like he ticks a lot of the boxes. Yeah, he does, doesn't he? And he is a proper evil, vicious bastard. So yeah, I'd say Matt Lucas as Baron Vladimir Harkonnen. He's about 70 when the events of June take place, so that's worth bearing in mind. And Beast Raban is in his early 50s.
Well, you could have Terry Jones playing him as Mr. Creosote.
Terry Jones? What,
the guy who plays Mr. Creosote in Monty Python?
Oh, that was Terry Jones, was it? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't recognise him, to be fair, because it's, he's...
Fuck off, I'm full.
Oh, go on then.
You can have a wafer. Do you want a wafer, Mr. Harkonnen?
But the chef has made it specially for you. You'd be so sad. So sad. Please, do not let me take this back to the kitchen. Oh, go on then. But so, I mean, do we want to talk more about the glaring problems in the film? Like, for example, I hope Pink News picks up on the fact that Baron Harkonnen is a proud ally of the LGBT movement, what with him being a gay murdering pederast. But I think in DUNC, that aspect of him was severely downplayed, whereas in the 2000 miniseries, it actually was played up. And it's very important because there's a scene in the third part of the miniseries, because is it 3 hours? Yeah, it's about 3 hours long.
Was it about an hour each then? Because it's 3 episodes, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it. And the Baron invites Fade into his bed chambers, and he says to him, what's the meaning behind this? And he says, what do you mean? So the slave boy, which he's done murdered, is laying on the bed. He points to the blemish on his thigh, and then he presses on it, and this poison needle comes out of it. And he says, well, you're intending for me to have a slow, poisonous death. And so they talk about that, the fact that Fade was planning to assassinate his uncle, because, well, that's, he learnt from the best how to do that sort of stuff. But
they are, isn't it?
Yeah, but the point being is that what was happening is that that was it. Now, in the story, Jessica and Paul get released into the desert with the implication that they'll die there because it's just, there's no water, no nothing. The worms will probably eat them.
Because I always assumed that they thought the worms would eat the vehicle after the crash. That was my assumption. That it was how.
Yeah, it would dispose but that way you could sort of hold his hand on his heart and said, I didn't murder them. I didn't kill them, because he was under instructions not to kill them. So he could say, well, I didn't. They escaped.
Who was he under instructions from? Because
the Emperor and the Bene Gesserit.
Yeah, but the spice pilot told him to kill Paul Atreides, didn't they?
Right, so you're talking about the DUNC film, which deviates from the story and does it in ways which are stupid and gay and shit and make it worse. Yeah. And there's many examples like why did they deviate from this? Because this is dumb and stupid and gay. And that's one of the examples. Because if in the original book and in the 1984 and the 2000 series, it's like, no, let them go into the desert, and then I can say they escaped. And that way, if we have to talk to the Emperor's truthsayer, I can honestly say I didn't murder them. But because the Emperor, Baron Vladimir Harkonnen, really fancied Paul Atreides, who, spoiler warning, is his grandson, he wanted to... Yeah, did you not know? Yeah, spoilers. Spoilers, but it turns out Paul
Atreides is whose grandson?
Paul Atreides is the grandson of Baron Vladimir Harkonnen. Oh, okay. Spoilers. So
does that not make a mess of that line from June 1984 when the Bene Gesserit says, "Well, I was expecting to marry. I was wanting you to have a daughter so we can marry off to a Harkonnen," or was that more of the eugenics?
No, that is part of the eugenics program in the book. The idea that Fade Ralpha would have married Paulette Atreides, or whatever, female Paul would have been called, and the resultant male offspring from that would have been the Kwisatz Haderach. But Paul came one generation earlier, and then what happened instead was Leto II, Paul Atreides' second son, because Leto the first, little Leto, gets killed by Sardaukar in the first book. Leto II becomes the God Emperor, and he has his own path, which annoys the Bene Gesserit and upset them a lot, which I thought was very funny, and I liked that. Now,
because they don't mention the part that apparently the Bene Gesserit can't read men's minds or something, is it?
Oh no, they can read men's minds. It's just when they're doing their Water of Life ceremony or the poison ritual, they can't peer into the male. Only a man can see that part of humanity's psyche, and that's why the breeding program was trying desperately to make a male Bene Gesserit who could see this thing, like a male equivalent of Reverend Mother. But
Was Frank Herbert a part of the Belgian Illuminati?
Wow, that's a good question. All right, I don't know much about his lineage. I just know that he was raised by his Jesuit mum and aunt, so features heavily in this story. But that's the thing. The scene with the slave boy.
Jesuit, sorry, the prisoner guy.
Prisoner.
Yeah, Patrick McGowan of the Prisoner show.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yes, that he was a fan of them, and he became friends with Mel Gibson too, which is weird. Sorry, guys.
That's interesting. I don't mind that. I just briefly, I want to wrap up this point about Vladimir Harkonnen and the the proud LGBT ally that he is. So we find a 14-year-old slave boy who resembles Paul Atreides, and then Fade Ralpha decides that would be a good time to go and get him all set this trap in his fight, because he knows what his uncle likes, and he'd run his fat greasy hands up and down his thighs, and the idea being that it would set off the hair trigger on the needle and then poison him. That element was... No, I'm not sure. Is it like a thing like gays are incredibly thin-skinned, and the idea of a film showing like a gay villain would be seen as evil and wrong? Is that why they have...
Javier Bardem was pretty fucking weird in that James Bond movie, weren't he?
I think they would have a problem with it, wouldn't they? With you're falling back on the stigma of gay people being predators or whatever.
He literally is. He is a predator.
Yeah.
And but so I mean I would almost argue saying, well, it's an adult story, and not all people of this ilk are as pure as the driven snow. Therefore, this film is respectful to them by showing one of their kind being like this. But then the problem, of course, would be like you show it to normies and they go, "Oh, you know what? There are predatory gays, aren't they, that like to prey on boys? Let's keep our children away from them." And of course, the gay predators be like, "No, you should let us come and babysit your children because we need access to their buttholes." So, yeah. Now, you may be asking yourself, seeing as we've got like an hour into this, Hobbit, this is all very interesting, and we appreciate you talking an hour about your favourite story of all time, which is not Lord of the Rings, it's Dune. What's this got to do with paranormal and woo-woo stuff? Well, I'm glad, like, hypothetical listener asking me this question, which leads into the next bit of my thing, which is to say, quite a lot. Now, you see, originally Dune wasn't going to be Dune. It was just going to be a piece of non-fiction about, "Hello, my name's Frank Herbert, and I have been working with the US Navy Department in terraforming the sand dunes of Oregon, and here's what we found by planting poverty grasses in the sand dunes to hold them, and not read it. That's it. Green the desert." So they did that, and this was in the 1950s, and it was a good thing, which is why by the time of the 1990s they were like, "LOL, no, let's bring the desert back, destroy all this effort that the US Navy Department's done, and just burn all the grasses and let the sands claim it all again, because why not?" So that, you could have done that, and that could have been a report from the National Geographic. But then some of his friends at the time was like, "Hey man, do some shrooms." And Frank Herbert was like, "Yeah, okay, I'll do some shrooms." And then like Frank Herbert did some shrooms, and like a lot of people that take psychedelics, he became incredibly racist, a proponent of eugenics, and very homophobic. And that's why he decided, instead of writing a dry non-fiction report on how to plant greenery in the desert, which is in itself quite fascinating, he's like, "No, I'm going to do a book about the Messiah complexes, breeding programs, and how psychedelics can be used to shape human thoughts and minds." Now, I assume like a fellow Fortean travellers have at least dabbled with this stuff, or they're open to it, and they're familiar with the experiences. And I've got to say, of all the psychedelics I've done, salvia has been the most vivid and intense of all of them. And it's strange, like I mean, not that I would actually have some, because that would be illegal, but I was tempted to partake. And then I thought to myself, I could do, but I mean, I could always just like wait like another year. And I've been doing that for years and years now. It's strange. It's like I've had a bad trip now and then, but it's never been to the point like, oh yeah, I'll swear off that stuff and never do it again. But it's like, it's weird. It's like, oh yeah, I'd definitely do it again, but the time's just not right. Now, Salvia is the most vivid of all this stuff, and I'll tie this into June because this is very important. I have seen things on Salvia that are incredible, and one of the scenes in it was one of the first times I was with my mate Dave, and we were on the picnic blanket on a field somewhere in England, and I was shot into Sideways World because I called it Sideways World as you get sort of like blasted into it, and your perceptions go sideways. It's very strange. And I saw, like, imagine like pages of a book or an open zipper, and you're one of the pages in this book, or you're one of the teeth of the zipper, and you can see an infinity of these other like teeth of the zipper or pages of a book, and they're all separate, but you know they're interconnected. And as you come out of the trip, it eventually all comes in again. And another analogy, I suppose, would be like a Venus flytrap. If you've not done it, it's not going to make sense to you. But what I mean to say is it's very sort of like feeling like you're split apart into hundreds, thousands, or an infinity of separate parts. And you can see or at least I have in certain visions, I've seen the other separate parts, which are very similar but different. And then I described my experience to Dave when I was done with this, as saying, like, I saw you and I on a huge chunk just of this field. Like, imagine like it'd been just carved out, extracted, like a cube of the field, just on a conveyor belt somewhere. And there's this massive, immense factory which is building the world which we're on. But you see all these other cubes, and they're being making like thousands of other worlds, very similar to our own but different. And then eventually, as I came to, all of the worlds started to connect again, like a zip being pulled up, or pages of a book coming together to form a solid book. In June, interstellar travel would be impossible without the spice melange, which is used by the Bene Gesserit. It's used by guild navigators, and it's used by people that can afford it, because on low-level doses, it's not going to make you trip out, but it will stimulate you and prolong your life.
Is it quite expensive then, spice?
Oh yeah, it's the most valuable substance known to man, and
so it's only like elites that are going to be doing this stuff.
Yeah, you know, it's like it's a bit hard to get hold of than cocaine.
So it's like adrenochrome, as Matt has said.
Yes, yeah, and an adrenochrome which will split your consciousness into thousands of separate pieces, let you see future timelines, and then it's up to you to sort of guide yourself through those futures to select the right one. So the reason a guild navigator would use that is, if you just go faster than light, from A to B, you might crash into a planet, a star, or an asteroid. You might hit something. So the navigators are swimming in spice gas. So they imagine like that scene in Scarface.
So how do you take spice? Do they tell you or not?
You eat it, or you breathe it in.
Oh, okay.
So imagine that scene in Scarface, like when he's on his desk and he's got the little hillocks of cocaine. Yeah, that's it. And that's basically the spice. That's how much spice like the navigators use when they're folding space. They're all of that that melange is turned into a gas which they breathe in. In fact, they don't even need to eat, sleep, or drink. They just breathe in more spice gas. And that's why they're able to use that to see into space and time, and then plot a safe route from one place to another. And this was what allowed them to defeat the thinking machines, because the thinking machines can't do these. They can't have these strange, weird.
Are thinking machines robots, or are thinking machines something else?
They are.
AI.
Yeah, they're robots. Because but also they're artificial intelligence, which, like, Skynet's like got a motile part, and then it's got the Terminators are the motile part of the Skynet.
Yeah.
So the thinking machines they had, it was similar to that, and they just enslaved all of humanity, wiped out a lot of them, but then the humans were able to defeat them. And one of the reasons they were to defeat them is because humans could safely do faster than light travel. Like, they'd lose fleets all the time, so they, to the point where they wouldn't do it. They just go less than faster than light. So even though the robots had like greater firepower and outnumbered the humans, because the humans were able to use faster than light, they could just concentrate their forces and defeat the thinking machines in battle after battle. And they're only able to do this
before June, is it?
So yeah, these. Well, June would have been known at the time because that's where they get the melange from.
Yeah.
And then some like bright spark figured like, oh hey, this stuff's pretty good. Yeah, but what if I was like to do a gravity bomb with it? I'm going to do it. I'm going to see how much spice is physically possible for a human being to ingest.
So is this kind of like saying that you don't actually need like the technology to travel to? Is it just the spice that makes you able to like get like?
No. That's the thing. The Guild Highliners, which the massive starships which used to go from place to place, they use the Holtzman field generator, which folds the space and time. Right. But in order to navigate a safe path, you need to have someone that can see the future to see the points. And so the navigators, they have limited prescience. They can plot a safe path. Now Paul, he was able to do something which the Reverend Mothers can do, which is have poison and transmute it. And of all the poisons, the water of life is the most profound. It's a spice derivative. It's made when a worm is drowned in water, and it gives off a very, very potent poison. And what a Reverend Mother can do is they'll take the poison and they'll go into a spice trance, and on a molecular level, they'll go and rearrange the structure of the poison to make it inert and turn it into an antidote, which then they spit up, and then it like makes the rest of the water a safe drug to consume, which is then used in something called the spice orgy.
Wow.
Yeah. And in this time, the Reverend Mothers, because it's incredibly painful, it causes a stress reaction. And it means that afterwards they become enlightened and it awakens their cellular memory. So all the previous women, which are in their matrilineal line, they're able to access the memories of all of those women that came before. And that's part of the reason, like, the Reverend Mothers have to be so conditioned, because otherwise they can become possessed by their memories, and then one of the dominant ones can come through and take them over. And we see a similar thing in real life. There's people in real life. There's people that can see auras, and they say, like, you got your aura and it shows these chakras and like colourful waves emanate from people, and you've got a crown chakra, but with like crackheads, the crown chakra is broken, and that's why so many of them end up schizophrenic, or they're schizophrenic to begin with, because the crack it breaks the crown chakra, which leaves the person's psyche damaged, open to possession. And I mean, there's like crackheads are very broken people. I mean, there's that expression of crack whores, which they they're willing to do anything for their next hit. And it's one of those things about these powerful drugs. If you're not coming into it right, you will get fucked up. And that's why in the book it's exaggerating, saying that no men can undergo the spice agony, because any that have tried it have died. Until Paul comes along and he goes and does the spice agony, and normally it takes a few minutes, but in his case he goes into a coma for about 3 weeks. And it's only because of his Bene Gesserit training, his body, it goes near death, but not quite. So his heart is still beating, but it's like beating every minute as opposed to like 60 times a minute. And he eventually comes to, and then he's able to see all times and all places. And that's why he becomes the Kwisatz Haderach, because he can see everything that's going to happen. And that's why later on in Dune Messiah they
can Bene Gesserits read other Bene Gesserits? Can they read minds, and can they read each other's minds?
Well, they can't, but they're so observant they practically can, and there's a lot of stuff you can do with reading people. There's many signals they give off, but they're not psychic, they're not mind readers. But in the case of Paul, his vision was so prescient, and he could predict like paths people were going to take with such accuracy. And there was even sort of debates in God Emperor of Dune about saying that Paul wasn't.
You know when he gets drugged, when his dad gets killed. Why doesn't he not know he's going to get drugged then?
Because at that point his prescient powers aren't powerful enough. He hasn't taken the water of life at that point.
Right.
Yeah.
But they make him take it thinking he'll die from it, and he doesn't.
No. Paul volunteers to take it. That's the thing. He realizes that, because at that point he just, being on Dune sort of awakened his abilities, and when he spent time with a Fremen, he was consuming more and more spice in his diet.
Because there's a bit with the miners, when they rescue all the miners, he smells the spice on them, doesn't he?
Yeah, that's it. But eventually he sort of realizes that his powers are waning, and he's become desensitized to the spice. So he knows he needs to do the next step, which is why he goes and does the water of life. Okay. And he could have died, because every other male that did it died, but no, he didn't. But the funny thing is, like later on in God Emperor of Dune, which I would say is the most important story of a lot of it, Leto II says, my father, Paul Muad'Dib, he couldn't see the future. He shaped the future. He made it happen. Which might be a subtle point, but I think it's interesting. Because I've asked myself a lot of stuff, like, about... I've had these questions after psychedelic experiences of, like, what is the extent of my consciousness? What is the point where it's like, that is no longer me? And I realised the boundary wasn't as clear-cut as I thought. It's not just my body, because my consciousness and my will affects other people. When I speak, I can say something very strange or silly, like I've clogged a toilet, let's go. And it will live on in people's minds forever and ever. And you see, so the extent of me is also in other people that I've interacted with. And so the question of where do I end and where do I begin is very hard to define. It's like that question I had a few weeks ago Je pense donc je suis, that Descartes said, I think therefore I am. Yeah. So that's why a few weeks ago I was saying, like, so when you're asleep or when you're unconscious, you no longer am. And therefore, this continuity you got, which is your memories, what if that's a false continuity? What if it's like, the only real you is you of that day? The yous of before may have not been you. They could have been very similar to you. Much like that vision I had with the Salvia, where I saw all these worlds, all like very similar, but not quite the same. And then I realised, like, they're separate. But it's only later on, and I think that's when people talk about, oh, hey man, it all just becomes one. It's like, no, it doesn't become one. What happens is your ego reestablishes itself after you've been blasted through a psychedelic cannon. and you realize. So the real truth, I would say, is that we're all different and many different things. And it's only once our ego comes to re-establish itself that our defense barriers come up when we say we're all one, and it gives us a nice warm tingly feeling to say, oh, we're all interconnected, because all these separate bits, which I saw for the truth of it, where they're all separate and different, although they're quite similar, and that's probably why we can get on, because, you know, we've got this compatibility and civilization and what have you. But then you come down from your trip and you sober up, and then it's sort of like all these disparate elements you see coming back into yourself, your ego, and you go, oh yeah, it's all one. I'm interconnected with the universe, man. And it's like, yeah, but you're not.
And one consciousness, man. We're all one consciousness.
And this is the thing. Like they were saying that, oh, you know what? Psychedelics will help fight racism and things. And one of the sort of the
no, by the sounds of it, it makes you realise not all one. Everything's different, right?
you see, that was the Midwick take, and then someone says, like, so basically you need to get brain damage in order to accept multiculturalism. I say, well, both of you are full of shit, because take it from someone that's been there. LSD made me more racist, because after my trips, I started realising, like, we are all separate, aren't we? I mean, we barely, like, we understand.
And that is why there's a war on drugs, guys. It's not because it's bad for you, it's because it'll make people racist.
It's because it makes you honest. I'm at that point where I just have to be like, look, I have had the truth beaten into me, and I can no longer lie to others about it. And I know that, like, lying's a defense mechanism. I mean, you're supposed to, like, lie to get along, but that civilization, that's what it is. We understand, like we could be very honest and say we're all different, and we're competing for mates and resources, so we should be in a competition where we're murdering one another. And for most of humanity, that's what we've done with dueling, fights, brawls, murder and war. We've done that. But we agree upon this idea of civilization, where it's like, we could do that, or alternatively we could learn to live with one another, even though I think you're really fucking annoying, and I'd like to strangle you, especially when you decide to mow the lawn on Sunday morning, when I'm trying to have a nap, because I've been drinking on Saturday. So civilization means that we don't go over and murder our neighbours with a lawnmower. But you start taking the water of life, and you're in many places at once, and you start realizing that there is a great undercurrent of violence here, which can be, if a certain catalyst can be found for it, can be unleashed. And I find it interesting. I'm not advocating for violence. I'm not going to do a Brutus and say this is a peace and love stream, because, again, honesty about it. Just be sensible. Don't advocate violence. But I will say there's something. June was very interesting. June manages to tell a lot of truth, and I think it goes over most people's heads. I mean, one thing I saw on Twitter was saying, like, in DUNC, they showed the desert being a barren, desolate wasteland. That's not what the desert is. It's teeming and vibrant. It's like, well, for a start, you're fucking wrong, because the term deserted and desert mean the same thing. It means it's devoid of life. And when we think of a desert, you think of a place which doesn't really rain that much. Hardly anything, if anything at all, lives there. Yeah. And in June, it's literally like, it's a desert planet. The sandworms, or rather their larval stage, the sand trout, have sequestered all the water away and locked it deep in the planet's crust. And that's why there's not a drop to drink anywhere, except for the little bits of dew which you can catch in the morning. And it tells a lot of truth. I mean, for a start, it's just accepted that there's a eugenics program. I find it very interesting later on that Duncan Idaho, who's one of the greatest warriors the universe has ever seen, 3,000 years on, in the height of Duke Leto II's reign, he's even defeated by, like, by an old man called Moneo, because like Moneo and Duncan were fancying the same woman, and Duncan, who's rather annoyed because he keeps getting revived over and over again, he lashes out in frustration. But Moneo, who's like about 90 years old, manages to defeat Duncan Idaho, just gives him like a casual backslap. And then Duncan, like, even up against the Fish Speaker, which are the women soldiers in God Emperor, he's not able to defeat any of even their weakest warrior. And he talks with Later the Second and says, "Why am I the commander of your Fish Speakers? I can't defeat any of them. I'm weak and I'm slow in comparison. I'm an old model." And Later says, "Well, my breeding program, which is superior to the Bene Gesserit, what with him being the God Emperor, has evolved humanity into a state." And he says, "I'm not quite done with it yet." Because in God Emperor, they talk about the Golden Path. And the idea behind the Golden Path is because for millennia, humanity's been looking for a messiah, someone that's going to lead them out of all these troubles. And Later the Second becomes that messiah, he becomes their god, and he's an absolute tyrant. And the idea behind it is, with the 3,500 years of his reign, his tyranny, he pretty much makes interstellar travel come to a standstill because there's no more spice production. He's the only sandworm that's left, as Dune has been finally terraformed into a verdant paradise, apart from a small sequestered bit of desert, which he calls his Sihaya. No idea what Sihaya means. Bear says, "A system of cells interlinked within, cells interlinked within cells interlinked." Hobbit talking about a psychedelic dream. I did a load of mushrooms.
Do a literary criticism of Dune. Sorry, should write a Kindle thing on this or something. This is good.
Hey.
Yeah.
Well,
really got it down. Sorry.
But no, this is the kindling. This is the thing. Harley says, "I did a load of mushrooms and tried to eat my boyfriend's face. I thought it was a huge marshmallow." You see, your results may vary. Not everyone's going to have the same. They're not going to get the same thing from a psychedelic vision. Not everybody's going to become the Kwisatz Haderach. Not everyone's going to start taking LSD and then just gone, "I really can't stand darkies at all. They're ugly. They are orcs. They're different. I don't like them. They are a different creature. Oh, look, they've got Homo erectus genes. Right. So my prejudice..."
By the way, kids, don't get PCP mixed up with LSD, because results will vary there. I saw a thing once where some guy cut his own face off with a piece of glass and fed it to his dog.
That was in a magazine, like in the 90s, wasn't it?
Bizarre. Do you remember Bizarre? That's what it used to be.
Yeah,
yes.
I think that was the book. Yeah, magazine. Yeah, fucking.
I've seen Steve-O, PCP saved my life, and my God, that's a drug which. I mean, it looked like he was having fun on it, but it was at the expense.
Don't like people on PCP put their fists through fucking windscreens and things like that, don't they? They just
don't feel pain, and you become super. You got like superhuman strength. Like there's people dropping from 5-story windows and then just smashed into a car and then get up naked, shit on the icy street. And then just like run and like 17 cops trying to pin them down. They're just like, "No, I'm going to jump up again." It's
those guys on that motorway again, isn't it? You can get run over by a truck and just keep walking.
Yeah. Then two old girls. Maybe that's what it is. They were on PCP. Those pair.
That was
They were the Kwisatz Haderach, weren't they?
They were in many places at once.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they could teleport, right? I mean,
So the thing is with psychedelics is we've got filters on the way we perceive reality, and we know certain creatures and children don't have these filters in reality. That's why they're more likely to see ghosts, and cats will hiss when there's ghosts around because they're seeing things that we can't, or we choose not to. And I'm not sure how these filters come in, because it's not as if I was like in lesson in school, like saying like, right, ghosts and goblins, you're not going to believe in fairy tales anymore. There's no such thing as Father Christmas, etc.,
Are you saying our
etc.
ancestors were just absolutely fucked on hallucinogenics all of the time? Is that what you're saying, Hobbit?
I don't know. I'm saying that civilization is agreed of set is
Agreed.
like agreeing upon a set of lies, white lies, the noble lie, which we go like, look, we're going to have a civilization because it's a bit easier than, might makes right and murdering each other all the time. And look, we get nice things like we get baths and we get pretty women and you can go to the theatre and you can have someone giving you a hand job while someone else is doing a play. There's benefits to civilization. Like you can get honey cakes. You don't just have to be like fighting a saber-toothed tiger for the gazelle you just killed. You can have a honey cake. You can have like meats roasted with stuff with fruit and things. And because of all these like benefits to civilization, like every man gets a wife, we agreed upon monogamity. That causes civilization. You get a fairly stable form of life, and there's certain truths which it just gets referred to as witchcraft or sorcery. Sorcery in Greek, I'm told, is pharmacopoeia, where we get our pharmaceuticals from. The term pharmaceuticals. I asked my aunt about this because she's good with languages and she studied ancient Greek and stuff. So I was talking to her. I said, "Hey, is Cyprus Chypros? Does it mean copper?" And she says, "Yep, that is it." I said, "Oh, okay," because there's copper mines in Cyprus. Interesting enough. So I was saying to her, I said, "Hey, what's les sorcerers? What's that in Greek?" She said, pharmacopoeia. I said, comme she's French, comme une pharmacie, like a pharmacy. She said, yeah, that's where we get the term pharmacy from. So pharmaceuticals is sorcery. And that was the thing. I mean, in the Bible it says don't do sorcery. Don't partake of the burning bush. Do not consume the manna.
Thou shalt not suffer a witch to live.
Yeah, all that sort of stuff. And what it's saying there is that you like civilization, right? You don't really want to see the demons that are rolling around the world, and you don't want to get scared by this stuff because you'll never come back.
You certainly don't want to make a deal with them, do you?
Well, and that's the problem. Unfortunately, some of these people, they sort of succumb to it and think that now they've seen the truth, that means they've got to go and make a devil's pact because that's the real power and that's the truth that was revealed to them. You don't come back from these events the same.
That's why Hannibal did to the Verger, Hemi. Does anybody know what Hannibal did to the Verger?
Is he talking about Silence of the Lambs, or are you talking about Hannibal Barca, the Carthaginian general?
Yeah,
I think he's talking about Hannibal.
Which Hannibal?
Yeah. But yeah, I've pretty much said all I wanted to do about Dune, or DUNC. Dune, the mini-series and the 1984 films are beautiful, absolutely beautiful, and I think I would say the mini-series actually gets it better than the film.
Oh, yes, I know what he's talking about. He's talking about Hannibal the Cannibal. It's from Red Dragon, is it? I think by Ray, or is it from Hannibal? I think it's from Hannibal. Yeah, he gets the guy. He gets the guy on LSD and gets him to cut his own face off with a piece of glass.
Oh, that's nice.
Have you seen?
Want to do that on LSD?
I think it's Hannibal. It's not Red Dragon. I think it's Hannibal.
Is it not?
Yeah.
Oh, Kaber. He was talking about trust nature and vitamins and stuff. And I said, well, when I'm ill, I drink Chartreuse. It contains wormwood. And as I found out, it's a powerful antibiotic and attacks parasites, thus the name wormwood.
Yeah.
And so he said, this guy is going to be more chemical than man at some point. And I thought, oh, the irony that he responds to this as I'm talking about psychedelics and June and awakening and seeing these truths, these unpleasant truths.
Caber, of course, he was co-creator of 14 Words. It was me, Hobbit, and Caber, weren't it? Back in the old days.
That's it, and he was
in the before times.
It's funny because he is a bit out there and woo woo, but when you meet him in the pub, he's very down to earth and he's a
very practical guy, isn't he?
He strikes me as very pragmatic.
Mm.
Yeah, but he's but he's a bit funny though.
Yeah,
because he's happy to like my tweets on Twitter. But doesn't really want to
talk to you.
Yeah.
That's a shame. It would be nice to get the old gang back together, wouldn't it?
I mean, if Brutus was in the pub...
Oh, it is from Red Dragon. Okay. I knew it was from Red Dragon or Hannibal, and I just couldn't remember which one it was. Yeah, it was from Red Dragon. That's right, yeah.
Ah, see, it wasn't PCP, it was LSD. Yeah.
I think that was LSD in that one. I don't think it was PCP.
Oh,
yeah. I mean, in response, Verger plans to feed Hannibal to pigs. Yeah, Red Dragon's not bad. The remake. You could always just watch Manhunter. That's the first appearance. Brian Cox played the first Hannibal Lecter. If anybody didn't know. What, have I blown everybody away with that knowledge? The first appearance Hannibal Lecter was. Manhunter during the 90s, I think it was, and that was Brian Cox as the man himself.
Yeah, so there are certain truths to the world which are a bit unpleasant, and I think for the sake of civilization, it's why most people should not do it. But there will always be a snobby elitist sect who'd be like, of course I'm the exception and it was all right for me.
Or the grubby unwashed sect as you were back then, weren't you, Herbert?
Oh yes, I was the elitist clique, neat, living in my parents in my own bedroom.
You were the grubby unwashed sect, wasn't that when you looked like Hagrid, weren't it, Herbert?
I had a very long beard then. Yeah.
Did you have long hair as well, or did you?
Oh yeah, I had hair down to my arse.
So you went full Hagrid. So you was full Hagrid then, were you, Hobbit?
Yeah. It's like you're a wizard now. You're a wizard now, Hobbit. Yeah.
Ray says, "Suffer not a witch to live." Based Hemi, modern witches are feminists. Just saying.
One of my exes was a witch, and I got to say she had a fantastic pair of tits, which. It was fun as well because we'd smoke weed together and she'd get horny and we'd do things together.
Yeah. Did she ever do any sex magic with you?
Oh, well, you mean like I get to come on her tits really quickly? Yeah, that was good stuff. That was.
Is that
sex magic?
Oh yeah, it was. I mean, I'm not.
It's splooging quick sex magic, Hobby. You're gonna give us some
5-minute sex magic, eh?
Whoops.
I'm not saying what like arcane ritual she used to make me come fast, but she
finger up the arse.
she knew what finger. She knew what buttons to press. She was Benny Gesserit trained. That's for sure.
She pushed your joy buzzer, did she? A bit.
Oh, I miss her. I wonder what she's up to these days.
Dom says that reminds me. I need to go for a witch's tit.
Yeah. Those memories are meant to memorise you, then enslave your ass to the devil, Hobbit. Stay strong, but yeah, that's it. Yeah. Well, that's it. I was bewitched by her. She says I'm a witch. I'm like, okay, I accept that.
So, do you want to start this next bit then, Fraser, or shall I?
You go.
Yeah, because I was going to call this episode Teleports Behind You, because we did find that... I haven't actually made any notes for this, so enjoy this bit, guys. It's going to be a lot of fumbling stuff. So we found out that... what's thingy? Not the Quizzy... Was it? I've forgotten already.
Kwisatz Haderach.
Kwisatz
Haderach.
Haderach.
You found the kosher version.
The extremely kosher version. So the extremely kosher version is the
Kwisatz. Is it Kwisatz Haderach?
I'm the Kavitz.
Why don't I?
Kavitsat Haderach.
Kavitz, yeah.
Kavitz.
The gefilte Fitch Haderach.
Yeah.
I'm convinced.
The gefilte Fitch Hanukkah.
The cholet Haderach. The Kavitsat Haderach. So in Hebrew, is a Hebrew term used in Jewish sources referring to miraculous travel between two distant places in a brief time. So it turns out that the Kavitsat Haderach, and there's also a Muslim version, which is called the. Here we go.
Is that when you're able to drive from Bristol to London in less than an hour, and your rabbi goes, "Oh, it's the Kavitsat Haderach. Oh, yeah. You said you were in Brighton this morning." Yeah,
so the Arabic version is the Tay al-Ard, which is the folding up of the earth. So this this kind of reminds me of a film that can be either a prequel to Dune or a prequel to Warhammer 40,000.
Yeah.
What's it called? Event Horizon.
Yes.
Because
I want to mention now in that they do faster than light travel, but then the ship becomes possessed by the evil of the warp, and that's why in Warhammer 40,000, in order to stop the warp coming in and corrupting your vessel and all the people inside, you use a Gellerfield.
Yeah. Is that a Sarah Michelle Gellerfield?
That's it. Whereas
you have Buffy pop out and smack those demons.
Whereas in June you've got the Holtzman field, which is the shields, which mean that fighting.
So if we were to assume that Event Horizon, 40k, and so is it possible that 40k and June are in the same universe?
Well, no, because 40k is the LOL. That's the nice intellectual property you got there. We're ashamed if we were to make models of it and then relentlessly and viciously pursue anybody that uses our intellectual property. Games Workshop is basically just they're plagiarists, and you know what? It's fun, but at the same time, I'm gonna get a 3D printer just so I can pirate all their models.
Yeah, but the thing is, June's the year 10,000, isn't it? So it is possible that 40k is June in the far-flung future, isn't it?
Yeah, but in June, there's always been aliens and mystical creatures and such. So.
Oh right, okay, so it's not actually.
Yeah, whereas in June, the entire universe and even other universes have been colonized, and it's all humans, which I find very interesting. There are some human hybrids, like there's futars later on, not to be confused with a Japanese fetish. They're half cat, half.
So
human
what we're saying
hybrids.
then is Event Horizon is the branch of two completely different universes. One way it goes 40k, and then the other way it goes June. Is that what we're saying of it?
Well, yeah, and the thing with 140k is they've got the God Emperor of Man in that, and he sits on his golden throne, and it's all just it's derivative of Michael Moorcock's Chaos stuff, Frank Herbert's Dune. And a few other things.
Ray says Dune and Warhammer being in the same universe is more believable than Blade Runner and Alien being the same. See, I don't. I think Blade Runner and Alien are quite dystopic, and they're very similar. I can fully believe that Weyland.
Where's the replicants in Alien though?
Well, they became the synthetics, didn't they?
Weyland Corp, right?
Yeah, Weyland Yutani, isn't it? So I could believe that the replicants became the synthetics because the replicants were too unruly.
But why isn't there a gorgeous Sean Young as Rachel, just eviscerating xenomorphs?
Then you have Lance Henriksen in the second in the Alien films, don't you? Mind you did have old Bilbo himself, didn't you? Ian Holm in the. What I liked about Blade Runner was the fact that it's future, but it's also film noir. And that's why it's all 1940s styling and the flying cars and stuff. Well, I think the thing with Blade Runner is it's a product of its time. So in the 80s, they were looking back to the 50s, weren't they? A lot of people say this because if you look at a lot of the 80s stuff, it's looking back to the 50s. So you've got like even up to Roger Rabbit, haven't you? They're still looking back to the 50s noir, aren't they? So then you get into the 90s, and then you're going back to the 60s, aren't you? Because you got the second Summer of Love, all the drugs, all that business, haven't you?
Yeah, that's right. Because there was a lot of like 50s nostalgia in the 80s films. I did notice that.
So that means the 2010s. So that means the 2010s were the 70s, and then
Were they?
And then I'm not quite sure.
Oh yeah, because 2010s was the era of Noel Fielding and the Mighty Boosh. You know,
yeah.
Imagine Jimmy Savile in a sitcom.
Sorry, not the 2010, the 2000s. So the 2010s were the 80s, which they were, because you had like the baseball
synth pop,
the truckers caps and things like and all that kind of stuff come back. So it's kind of weird that that we've started to run in 30-year cycles, which is kind of odd.
I wonder what's up with that.
Oh God, can you imagine when it's in 2040 and everyone gets around to like the 2010 sci-fi nostalgia? Fuck me, that's gonna be dire. I don't want to be alive by then.
I'll be back in a sec.
Pete the dog.
Yeah, it's well, by the year 2040, I mean, either we'll be all dead or be in the new Renaissance. So
the new Renaissance.
AKA
Babylon 5, New Renaissance.
Oh,
yes, that reference. No.
Now, there's a show that I would have loved to have seen done again. I remember watching it. I think I was watching it in 2015 or 14 or so. And it's like they should do Babylon 5, but like set like I think it stopped filming in 1997. Yeah, they should do it like 21 years into the future because Garibaldi was head of that Mars company, and it would have been a very interesting time to do it because they could have.
There's whole 20 years of like between the leaving Babylon 5 and what is it, the death of
Oh well, there was that virus on Earth where they had that spin-off show which
Crusade,
was crap. It was really bad. I mean,
speaking of spin-off shows.
Season. That's why there's only one season of it.
Speaking of spin-off shows, did you know there's going to be a Villeneuve Dune spin-off show about the Bene Gesserits?
Oh, yes, Slay Queen, proud feminist stuff. Except, you know what it actually is? Because the Bene Gesserit in it are competent women, and they are manipulative, and they are witches. But at the same time, they're not pure evil. They're not just. They don't hate men. They're just
like political, aren't they? They're just hyper political, aren't they? They're not.
They got their own agenda, and they think they know best on how to shape humanity to steer it the way they want to see fit.
Thinking they know best. Say it ain't so, Hobbit.
Yeah, it's funny that, isn't it?
Isn't it? Yeah,
it's like the Bene Gesserit meddle in the affairs of all these parties. So here's the idea, right? This was like the Bene Gesserit plan. Baron Vladimir Harkonnen, he's gay and he rapes boys to death. Yeah, we need. Wait,
how did he have a son? How did he make a son?
He didn't. He had nephews. Okay. So now you got like You got the Sisterhood.
No, his dad, grandson. Oh, grandson, isn't it? Okay.
The Sisterhood blackmailed him into siring a daughter, which becomes Jessica. And then that leads to Paul Atreides. Now the idea was Jessica was supposed to give birth to a daughter, and a few years before she gives birth to a daughter, Baron Vladimir Harkonnen's half brother Abelard has a second son, because the first son, Glossu Raban, is also known as Beast Raban. He has Phaedra Alpha Raban.
Because don't they all have different abilities as well?
What, you mean the different factions in Dune?
The children and the grandchildren of Paul Atreides, they all have different abilities, don't they?
Oh yeah, well I'll explain about that, because that's a good point. We'll talk about that. So Phaedra Alpha was supposed to marry what would have essentially been his cousin with the female Atreides, And then the descendant from that would have been the Kwisatz Haderach. But of course, Jessica, being that she's human, she fell in love with Duke Leto. Well, she was supposed to fall in love with him anyway. And this is the thing, that the Bene Gesserit don't believe in artificial insemination. They say it's very important that conception be done in an act of passion where the man's coming inside the woman's cunt. Frank Herbert doesn't use those words, but that's basically saying you can't do it with artificial insemination because that's what the thinking machines would do. And it's very, like, conception done the right way is very important to make right children that become right human beings. So even though the Baron had no interest in having sex with women, they coerced him into doing it anyway. And now, what happens on later on is the second son of Leto the Second, the second son of Paul Atreides, Leto the Second, who becomes God Emperor of Man. That would have been the Bene Gesserit's Kwisatz Haderach, but he, having undergone the same water of life. Actually, does he take the water of life? Chat. If anybody is a real anorak in this, tell me if like Leto the Second takes the water of life. He doesn't, but he does something which Paul Atreides doesn't do, and they do have a talk about this. Leto becomes a hybrid creature. The sand trout, they clamp onto his body, and they merge together. And because he's so infused with spice, they stay there, and it turns them essentially into like a suit of power armor, because he's taking these great bounding leaps through the desert. They're shooting him with las guns, and he's like not even got a scratch on him. And he rips off these like solid steel doors and clangs and like throws one of the doors and flattens like 20 Sardaukar troopers, just crushes them underneath it. And eventually, over like thousands of years, he turns into a sandworm creature. And he talks with his dad at the time, who he says, because he's horrified when he sees him. And he said, well, you saw the golden path, Father, but you didn't do it. And he says, yes, I was scared. And he says, well, I did it because you wouldn't. I will lead humanity on the golden path. And what happens is that because he does this before he's an adult. Just a minute. My door's been left open and it's fucking
So, what was the other point before that, Hemi? About the Kwisatz Haderach, wasn't it?
I was saying about the Kwisatz Haderach, and then the thing as well. So the Kwisatz Haderach is. Oh no, let me get it up. We might as well finish this thought off. So what it is? It's the shorter path or something, isn't it? Yeah. And there's been quite a few people in the Bible. We found someone
and the Quran,
called,
by the way.
Yeah, Habakkuk.
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 Yeah.
Is that how we say it?
Ezekiel.
I think there's a third one. There's a third one as well, but I can't think.
Foreskin thieves.
But the weird thing is they all had the same thing. They were grabbed by the hair and taken really quickly, which is kind of weird, isn't it?
Yeah, that's an interesting thing, because there was that Samson. All of his strength was in his hair.
Yeah.
And then they shaved his bollocks, and he got weak. So men don't shave your bollocks. Wow, we're not going.
If you want to talk some more. Tell it some Quran teleported. King Solomon. So they're saying that so what they do in this bit here is they link between the King of the Jinn and the spice pilot thing. So King Solomon enthroned between these grand Vizier Asif bin Berkia and the King of the Jinn. Asif's skill with magic inspired many legends, including those of flying carpets. His feat of bringing the Queen Sheba's throne to Solomon in the twinkling of an eye is mentioned in the Quran. So then they say about the spice Guild navigator who comes in as well. What else is there? So then there's also, because another thing as well is Muhammad's famous night journey. Obviously, I don't know much about the Quran. So it was followed by his visionary ascent into the seventh heaven, a slightly different example of the Kavitsat Haderach, like journeys. It includes another element of universal shamanic experience, one which ties many together as threads of interest. In this case, a form of ritualized dismemberment immediately prior to the heavenly ascension. In a narrative by Ibn Ishaq, Muhammad says with impressive simplicity, "While I was with a comrade of mine behind our tent shepherding the lambs, 2 men in white raiment came to me with a gold basin full of snow. Then they seized me, opened up my belly, extracted my heart and split it. Then they extracted a black drop from it and threw it away. Then they washed my heart and my belly with that snow until they had thoroughly cleaned them." That's weird, isn't it? The snow thing?
Yep.
I mean, could it be cotton wool? I mean, could they be time travelers? What's going on there?
This also happened to Jesus during the time when he went out into the desert. The devil took him to a high place where he was able to see all the cities of the world, and the devil said, "I can make you prince of any of these realms." And Jesus, rather than saying, "Well, that's a lie, my God is the rule, my Father is the ruler of everything," or saying that "you're the father of lies, you're full of shit," he doesn't say anything like that. He just says, "Get behind me, Satan."
Get thee behind
So Jesus, he never refutes the devil. He just says, "Get behind me, Satan." So I think that's tacit acknowledgement that the devil rules this world. It is his realm. And yet we're here. So maybe when Jesus is saying, "Be of this world, but not of..." Hang on, what's that quote? Be of this world, but not from it. So your body is made of the food which grows in this world, but you're not of it because your spirit comes from heaven.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the other thing with the sorceries and stuff. All these mushrooms and salvia and LSD, which is from the ergot fungus, which, like the water of life, is deadly poisonous until it's been transmuted into lysergic acid dimethylide. And I have actually consumed lysergic acid with my mate Dave, and he'll attest as to how poisonous that was. We had a very strange experience on that. But now, all of these things, they are of this world. They are the sorcery. So it's telling you more about this world. It's not telling you about your heavenly fathers. All these people saying being spiritual, it's just like, yeah, but women sacrificing their babies to Moloch are spiritual. It doesn't mean you're going to be good. I think people seem to think that being spiritual and being good are interchangeable, and they're clearly not.
I mean, I know plenty of people that claim to be Buddhist, and they just stood by and watched bad things go on.
Oh, Bear Ray says, Satan rules nothing, Hobbit, not even hell, not even himself. Evil doesn't create control. All it does is destroy and corrupt.
Well, what is
You're right, but I mean, when you consider all the sort of devilry in this world, and all our politicians are definitely Satanists, and all the people that got power in this world, they're all into this cult of death and destruction.
Hold on, Interdimensional Lizard has said, John 12:31, the time for judging... Sneeze. The time for judging this world...
Bless you.
On the trot. The time for judging this world has come when Satan, the ruler of this world, will be cast out.
So there you have it.
So basically, this is Satan's playground, then, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's what I and others believe, and I think that's your challenge as a Christian. You understand that this world is full of temptations, and some of them they can feel pretty good at the time. But ultimately, it's to pull you away from the path into deep dark forests, and maybe so. I shouldn't be advocating. Well, I'm not advocating for psychedelic use, just because I have had interesting experiences there, including bad trips, by the way. it's not to say to I think I'd be the first person to say to others, don't do it. Except the thing is, your heart's going to tell you whether you're going to do it or not. So it doesn't matter what I or anybody else say. It's not going to like dissuade you from the path, because nothing what other people said like convinced me one way or another. Ultimately, it was my heart desired it, and so I did my heart's desire, and I've learned from that experience, and it made me like super racist.
But the thing is, you know what's also really interesting about
racism.
your trippy experiences, Herbert, is something that we'll probably be talking about in the next few weeks, about the many different worlds you saw, supposedly.
Yeah. The way how like especially in South Europe, it breaks up your consciousness into hundreds of shards, which eventually reweave themselves.
Yeah, well, let's just say that when you mention the whole the devil thing and seeing all these different things on these these psychedelic drugs, is maybe creation isn't just this one little, should we say, blue dot. Whatever
it's not this one. It's not this one realm. There's a bit more than that.
Well, there's many times I've heard it described that we're experiencing. We all experience time wrong. We experience it linearly when we shouldn't.
Right. Well, that's it. This is the thing. Like, I mean, I don't know what your thoughts on then. If then you think that, well, okay, the Bible then, is that past or present or future? Has it happened yet?
Well, the Bible talks about events which haven't happened yet, so it's.
I mean, has it actually happened? Have all the events happened yet? Where are we in the Bible's timeline?
So are you saying that we could possibly be on another run round?
Yeah.
Maybe the Bible is cyclical.
Yeah.
Oh, so like that 30-year cycle for time repeating itself. There's also like great repeats as well.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, many ancient cultures also think. Yeah, remember what would mud floods and natural disasters and different ages of different civilizations that talk about different ages, the age of fire, age of water. How they'll end. The Mayans.
We're supposedly in the age of Aquarius, aren't we?
Yeah.
I think one of the things we should definitely do is, now that all the hype's died out, well, yeah, it was 9 years ago, we should do December the 21st, 2012, and the Mayan Great Count calendar and precession of the equinoxes in an episode, because I think all of this stuff saying...
Do you not think that maybe the calendar was a little bit out and we're going through the 2012 stuff now?
No, I think 2012 was the revelation of the method. Yeah. We're now in the consequences of it.
I think we have because I think it hasn't ended yet. The cycle hasn't ended. It's going to be ending. I think that's why there's this whole what we're going through right now.
Well,
this whole global reset thing is actually just they know that it's coming and they need to reset like humanity to a certain point. Maybe I don't know, to get it in.
I heard they're trying to force God's hand.
The prophecy says that we get to choose what the next cycle is, don't we?
Yeah, which is very interesting, isn't it? Then, if it's based on what you were saying earlier, Herbert, about thought, like and choosing and that, and
where you shape your future.
Yes,
it's not.
Exactly.
It's not the ability to predict the future. You're shaping it.
Well, that's what Leto the Second, right? Yeah, he shaped the future, didn't he?
He did.
He didn't see the future. He shaped it. And
I think that was Leto, wasn't it? Leto the Second actually.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Leto the Second actually saw it, didn't he?
No. He didn't see the future. He shaped it.
Wow. He created the future.
Yes, exactly. I think that's the most
the important thing that needs to be said about that.
You don't see the future, you shape it, and that's why I think that these reset.
Yeah.
You know,
to a lesser extent, that's mentioned in Terminator. It's like no fate but what we create. So
that is science fiction, isn't it?
Well, I've never agreed with the Calvinist idea of predestination because I saw a very funny joke and it's like, was it predestination that your wife cheated on you? So was it God's plan that your kid ended up as a femboy twink faggot? But the thing about that, which is very important in God Emperor of Dune, is his breeding program, which went through his sister, was to eventually culminates in a woman called Siona. And he says the great thing about Siona is his prescience. She's a shadow in his prescience. He can't see her in his mind's eye because he can see everybody else. And so Siona is prescient block. So the children of Siona, because she bred with Duncan, Idaho, all of her descendants, they are prescient block. So Edric class navigators couldn't see them, and people, future Kwisatz Haderachs wouldn't be able to see them. So this means nobody will be able to control humanity.
By a Ray says Terminator 1 was meant to be a perfect loop. The factory at the end was owned by Cyberdyne.
No, that would have been, because the thing is, they said, oh yeah, we got the chip and the arm from the factory, and that's how Cyberdyne systems came up.
Didn't they make that in number 2? Like, yeah, that's how.
No, they didn't say that Cyberdyne owned the factory, did they?
No, it was just like that was it.
Implied. It was implied, yeah.
No, they didn't even imply it, did they? Because they just straight up said, "Well, we got this from the government. They found it in the factory when the first one was destroyed."
Yeah, you see, it's those bits of story like that would have been better in it, and I think we should talk about that another time because the thing is, what God Emperor Leto managed to do was create a branch of humanity which couldn't be seen and therefore would be unpredictable, and this lead rise to because humanity was stagnant even at the time of Paul Atreides. Yeah. And that's why the Kwisatz Haderach needed to go into be. So the jihad which happened in Paul's name, which consumed all of the known universe, it was going to happen anyway. It was an avalanche, and he was just like a flake of snow that set it all off, in the catalyst, as you were. And Leto was continuing the avalanche, and he was shaping it. And he wanted to make a humanity which could never be ruled and could never be shaped. And so for the first time, because the thing about the Butlerian Jihad was okay, it's your first freedom. You understand
how long did you say the Bene Gesserits have been meddling again?
Thousands and thousands of years.
Yeah. Since
the Butlerian Jihad, which happened in I forget what. That would have been, it doesn't matter, thousands of years. Fact is that the first freedom was the Butlerian Jihad, where humanity overthrows oppression from the thinking machines, which meant that all of humanity would have deleted their Facebook accounts and gone no, that's it, no more social media. Even though it's really fun to scroll through social media as you're trying to do a show, because you're oh, look, this guy's talking about Dune, I'll use that. So they deleted all their social media, they got rid of their Roombas and decided to do the vacuum cleaning by hand, and rather than going to Google to do something, they get mentats, which will also be known as the anorak, and saying how many how far can a polar bear swim? The polar bear can swim 16,000 kilometers before needing rest. Oh, thank you. So
that's a lot of kilometers.
It's yeah, well, I don't know. I'm just if a train's leaving Penrith at 8:30 p.m. and travelling an average speed of 57 miles an hour, and a train from London was travelling at 80 miles an hour, at what point in the day will they cross? They will cross at precisely 8:03 p.m. unless there's a changeover at Birmingham. So
what by Ray's sentence is there's actually a deleted scene from Terminator where Sarah Connor's being put in the ambulance, and there's two dudes have found one of the chips, and they're looking at each other suspiciously.
Okay, yeah.
Does it say Cyberdyne on there?
It doesn't say. I can't hear what they're saying because I'm watching it while I'm broadcasting. But.
So the first freedom was the winning against the computers, realizing that they're not a help, they're actually a hindrance, and we're seeing the consequences of that in our world today. People are being antisocial, and I don't think they'd have done the lockdowns if it wasn't for ubiquitous internet and this simulacrum of human interaction.
Well, the TV, I think it's the TV's been the game changer in.
Oh yeah, the TV definitely was. I mean, the TV is really shaped the media. By the way, culture grows on the media. If ever you've done microbiology, you'll know all about like making like potato agar solution, and that's your media. And then you put some bacterial cultures on it, and you grow them. Unless you're doing a liquid culture, because I'd much rather do yeast brewing than bacteria. But that's neither here nor there. But then the second freedom was that the God Emperor, he set his golden path of humanity, where it's like, you're not going to have leaders ever again. You're going to become that horrible thing, anarchists. You're actually going to have to become your own masters from now on. You can't just rely on the Messiah to save your ass from these predicaments. You're going to have to do it yourself. And then the sequels kind of like ignore that bit, which was a bit annoying, but we won't talk about that because I enjoy the sequels, but it sort of really detracts from the message. But the thing about Dune is people get into complacency. Then you need a big kick up the arse, be it from like a heroic dose of mushrooms or a near-death experience or some great crisis which will make you remember who you are and who you need to be. Oh yeah, and that's the thing, that the Golas which regain their memories, they gain it from moments of intense stress, and the stress brings things about. The Reverend Mothers, when they go into these painful ceremonies.
Are they like robotic golems then, are they? I bet.
The Golas are clones, but they're made from dead cells rather than living tissue. And even though like Frank Herbert acknowledges like clones are a thing, there's never any except the Edric navigators. It's insinuated they're clones of the original
Doesn't one
Edric.
of Paul Atreides' descendants get cloned as well?
Duncan Idaho keeps getting reincarnated as a Gola, so his dead cells they're brought back again and again, and he through various like trauma is eventually regains his memories. So he regains his memories of all his past lives he's lived as a Gola, including his original time when he died when defending Paul and Jessica against the Sardaukar. And the Reverend Mothers have a similar thing when they do the Water of Life ceremony. That poison causes stress in them, and if they survive it, they regain all the memories of their cellular bloodline, which probably meant that Frank Herbert at some point was reading Carl Jung's work on consciousness, and Carl Jung did this thing. Now, I haven't read it, so I'm familiar with the concept through second-hand sources, but the collective unconscious?
Yeah, it's kind of like the... as well, there's been many different things on it, like Assassin's Creed, we know, like genetic memory, isn't it? The kind of...
Yeah, that's it. Like the cellular memory, the memories of your ancestry in your bones. So like things like being scared of spiders and such, that's a cellular memory. It's not learned behavior. It's just
that was a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles comic like that.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. There's basically what happens is Splinter's having an out of body experience, and this kid's granddad comes to him. He says, "Look, my son's in danger. Like my grandson's in danger. My son's not interested in like the spiritual stuff." But so basically, the turtles are kind of stuck. They kind of like the bloke's out there on his own, but they've managed to. But they managed to like he managed to connect with the spirit of his grandfather, and he learns all about being a ninja by accepting the spirits. So like the spirits of his ancestors fight through him. Yeah. And
I got to say, now, I want to tie this into something which happens to me a lot, and I'm sure it happens to other people as well, is this thing of prescience. Now, a lot of people experience prescience with it. The phenomenon is called telephone telepathy, where it used to be in times...
someone's going to ring.
Yeah, that's it. Well, and then you also know the person that's going to ring, and then you pick up the phone. And it's like,
you
I was
also
just
get that
thinking about you.
experience when you think about someone you haven't seen for ages, and then they appear.
And then, yeah, because the thing is, these days, I mean, it's hardly ever a phone call. It's usually a text message or something. But there's even been people I haven't like spoken with in years. Like my best friend at school, like a couple of years ago, rang me up out of the blue, and I was like, oh, didn't know you had my number, but. Actually, a point. How did he get my number? That's weird. But I should really ring him up sometime and just say, "Hey, I haven't spoken to you in a while. How's tricks?" But the thing is, I had it today as well. This prescience where I was going to the shops because I thought, I can't be asked to cook. I'll just get like even I cook. I get ready meals now and then, so I just got a curry from Sainsbury's and had that before the show. And like 100 yards down the road, I'm thinking of someone. And I think to myself, oh yeah, I really should say hello to her because she's always saying hello to me. And then I come back, and then, because I didn't take my phone with me, and I come back and I say, message 27 minutes ago from the exact person I was thinking about. It's like, holy shit. I mean, if I had known or whatever, and it's like 27 minutes ago, I was thinking about you, and then that's when you send me a message, and it's like this prescience. The people that are closer to me are more accurate with the prescience. Like in that case, it's instantaneously. It's like the time when it's happening. But other people, it'd be like that day. I'll start thinking about them, and then a few hours later, or a few minutes later, I'll get a message from them. And you see, there's things like this, which if you listen to Brian Cox and tosspots like that, there's no such thing as the soul, and science is disproven. They examined me closely and found I don't have a soul. Therefore, all of humans don't. Therefore, all of humans don't have a soul. And as you know, if you believe people like them, then there's no rational explanation for prescience.
Guy wears chapstick on his fucking lips, mate. He's fucking wrong.
Oh, he's got those weird fish lips, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's
Has he got red around his lips? That's a problem, isn't it, Herbert?
Oh, he hasn't got the sappho stains. No, that's for sure. Oh, yeah, and what's with the mentats with giving the black lipstick on them? For fuck's sake. Like, I get you trying to differentiate, but, like, can you at least... No, they can't stick to the source material as well.
What's wrong with red? What is wrong with red?
Well, look, the reason the mentats had, like, the red splotches around the face is because it's, like, sappho juice. They drink this stimulant, what lets them be autistic even more than what they are. And they get hooked on it because it's like, what, there's a drug that makes me more autism? Yes, please, I'll have more of that. Oh, I can tell you about all the serial numbers of every Napier Deltic ever built. And the last one to roll off the production line was on August the 12th, 1956.
I mean, like, everything you're saying here about Dune is, like, kind of, it is prophetic in itself. Like, we are living kind of, like, the stages of it. We're waiting for a savior. We're creating more autists by the day, you know. What? All we need to do is get rid of Facebook and shit. We'll be living it, except...
I think, like... And yeah, we'll be begging for the Messiah, and then it's like, well, watch out, because he'll be the Antichrist, and it's like, Paul Atreides, or certainly Duke Leto II, could be described as the Antichrist. This is a creature that, you know, promised salvation, but the salvation came at the result of billions upon billions of souls dying under a jihad. So, yeah. But anyway, thanks for listening, talking about my favourite fictional story of all time. Remember, none of this is true. There's no truth in fiction whatsoever, so you can't draw any parallels between fiction and real life. That's it. Fuck off.
Wow.
Is that it? We're done now.
Well, it is...
like Byron said, watch to the end, so then it pans up and you see it's Cyberdyne. So that's what happens.
Okay. I'll have to watch that clip, but yeah, it's good. Oh, and just remember, look at the YouTube description. It says there you can join us on Terrorism Instagram, t.me/Fortean words. You can see my review of the new DUNC 2021 film.
Yeah.
It's a bit shit.
It's not that shit. I don't think it's bad. I think it's just a bit of stunt casting. It's not woke by any means. I don't. Let's just a quick discussion at the end.
It is woke. Is
there a difference between stunt casting and woke?
It's
if there's stunt casting, but politically it's not woke. Is that still woke?
Yeah, it is woke. Casting? It is woke because it's like the Amazon Lord of the Rings thing. It's going to have black hobbits. It's woke. It's got for the sake of diversity.
You know how films used to say any resemblance to anyone living is purely coincidental?
Yeah.
They should have saying, like, due to 21st century things, we are required to have a diverse cast, because we all know diverse cast means more niggers, and that's what we got. Oh, by the way, don't say fuck or bugger, but it is past the 9 o'clock watershed, so... Speaking of which, I've been watching The Young Ones recently. That's from 1982. Oh, boy. The language they use there, they're not allowed to say words like cunt and fuck, but they are allowed to say words now which are strictly verboten.
Yeah.
Oh. How times have changed.
Watch like any of the scenes with police in The Young Ones and listen to the language they're using. It would not be allowed in polite society today. And I think this is the problem with modern...
You mean when they have the demon and it's numcool fuckajul fatumch? Do you remember that one?
Yeah, but I mean, there's also like a scene with Mel Smith where he's playing a copper and
he says a word.
He says a word.
Yeah,
he does. Yeah.
Anyway, goodbye, all. Stay spooky.
Yeah.
Ooh.